Best First Lady in all 50 states, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you so much. And it is really about the kids. It is about the rights of parents. I think parents have the right to know what curriculum is being used in their kids' schools, and we've enacted policies to protect that right, to give parents the ability to review curriculum and review the textbooks and other books that are there. And part of the reason that was necessary is parents started finding out there's a lot of really inappropriate stuff that's being smuggled into our kids' classrooms nowadays. Pornography in like a 6th grade library. That was not there when I was a kid, and so now they're doing it. So obviously that's not appropriate, certainly not appropriate to use tax dollars to be doing that. And so parents now have the ability in Florida to blow the whistle. Now, when they do that, the media will create a narrative that somehow removing a pornographic book from like a 6th grade classroom is somehow akin to banning books, which it's not. I mean, you have to make decisions about curating books, which books are going to be, which are not. For every one book you have about George Washington, there's probably 20 that you could have, and you just make decisions. Doesn't mean you're banning the other 20 books. No, you're just curating. So the whole thing is a hoax, but we felt the need to push back on it. So we did a press conference a couple months ago, and we called the press conference Exposing the Book Ban Hoax. But before I spoke, before the parents spoke, we just played on a big TV screen the images from the books that the parents were actually objecting to. The local news stations had to cut their live feed because they said it was too graphic. Well, if it's too graphic for the 6 o'clock news, how is it okay for a 10-year-old school child? The media tried to do, and I think even most of these outlets, debunked this because it was so ridiculous, but they tried to create in Miami a poem ban hoax. And what happened was, and this had nothing to do with me, nothing to do with the state of Florida, there was a school in Miami-Dade that had a book of poems. I guess the poet was involved with Biden's inauguration, so I don't know. But it was a book of poems, and they decided that it was more appropriate in the middle school library than in the elementary school library, so they just moved the book, to the next library. And the media tried to say that somehow that was being banned because something like the state of Florida was doing. I mean, it was a total fabrication and a total hoax. And so literally the Miami-Dade school district's got to put out a statement saying nothing's been banned. We literally just moved it to middle school because we think that's more appropriate, at that grade level. But it's a lesson in the dishonesty of legacy media outlets. They want to create narratives to advance their agenda, but they don't care about the facts, and they're not going to try to inform you of the facts if it conflicts with their agenda. So we fight back on that. We also fight back on things like critical race theory, which we have eliminated in our K through 12 schools. We're not teaching kids to hate our country or to hate each other with your tax dollars. No, we're actually going to teach kids what it means to be an American. We're going to teach about the Constitution and teach about American civics so they have a foundation for being citizens of this republic. Florida has also taken a stand against the introduction of gender ideology in our schools. It is wrong for a teacher to tell a 2nd grader that they may have been born in the wrong body or that their gender is a choice. And in Florida, that is not allowed to happen in our classrooms. Now, when we did that, the parents in Florida were thrilled because they just want kids, they want to focus on reading, writing, all that stuff. So the parents were thrilled. The left was not thrilled. And the media was not thrilled. And so they started piling on. They started to create narratives. They were trying to do whatever they can to smear the effort. But, that's kind of be expected. And so as we're getting ready to kind of go with this, all of a sudden, someone else wasn't happy with it. A company in Central Florida that you may have heard of called Disney. And Disney's view was that the bill should be stopped, that we should have somehow, that would be appropriate to have things like transgenderism taught to elementary school kids. That was their corporate position on that. And, you know, the thing about Florida is they're really the 800-pound gorilla when it comes to Florida politics. Everything they've wanted really for decades, they pretty much end up getting until now, because there's a new sheriff in town. And we're not going to back down to a woke corporation. We fight back. And so we stood our ground, we signed the legislation, and you know, it's the type of thing where they've gone, I think, in a direction as a company that the founder of the company would not approve of. When you have executives of Disney on TV, on these Zoom calls, boasting that their company is trying to inject sexuality in the youth programming, that is patently unacceptable. The sexualization of children is wrong, and we stand against that. We stand for the protection of children. And I know there's some of these other Republicans who are taking Disney's side on this, and they're attacking me. But when it comes to the protection of children, we will never give an inch, because the safety of our children is of paramount importance, and on that issue, there can be no compromise. It's wrong for a swimmer to compete on the men's swim team for 3 years and then switch to the women's team and somehow win the national championship. That's taking away opportunities from girls and women athletes. As the parent of 2 daughters, I'm sensitive because I want my girls to have opportunities to compete with fairness and with integrity. But it also, when you crown a women's champion under those circumstances, you basically have organizations like the NCAA that are perpetuating a fraud, because it is not true that that was the women's champion. The best women's swimmer was the second place, who was a woman. And it's sad we even have to say this, but it's wrong for physicians to perform sex change operations on minors. That is mutilation. And when you do that in the state of Florida, you will not only lose your medical license, you will go to jail where you belong. So in Florida, we just stand for what's right. And when we tell you we do something, we get it done. And the results speak for